When Arthur Nolan opened his front door that Tuesday morning, he thought the paper taped to the screen was another roofing ad. It wasn't. It was a lawsuit. Big block letters. County court. A bank he'd been paying for years was suing him for $50,327.14. Arthur just stood there in his socks, one hand still on the doorframe, reading the first line twice because sometimes bad news looks fake the first time. Then he took off his glasses, wiped them on the bottom of his t-shirt. Read it again. Same number. Same cold language. Same sentence that made his stomach drop. The plaintiff demands full repayment immediately. $50,000. From a man who still cut coupons for dish soap. From a man who reused Christmas gift bags. From a man whose idea of a reckless purchase was buying name-brand coffee once a month. And the worst part? He hadn't missed a loan on purpose. At least, he didn't think he had. But weeks later, in a quiet courtroom where nobody expected much from him, Arthur would put a single piece of paper on the table. One page. One line. One tiny error. $47. And suddenly, the bank's whole case didn't look so clean anymore. So how does something that small turn into something that big? That's where this story gets uncomfortable. Because Arthur wasn't the kind of man people imagine in a lawsuit. He wasn't flashy. Wasn't angry. Didn't talk much. Unless he trusted you. He was 61, narrow-shouldered, soft-spoken, the kind of person who always stepped aside first in a grocery aisle. He worked maintenance at a public middle school just outside Dayton. Same district for 19 years. He knew which classroom radiator clanked in winter, which hallway light flickered after rain, which teacher kept pretending the copier was broken when really she just hated using it. He packed the same lunch almost every day. Turkey sandwich. Apple. Little bag of pretzels folded shut twice. And every evening, when he got home, he emptied his pockets into a ceramic bowl by the door. Keys. Loose change. One folded receipt. Always one folded receipt. He lived in a modest two-bedroom house with faded blue shutters and a front step that dipped a little on the left side. His wife, June, used to remind visitors about that step before they noticed it themselves. Careful, she'd say, smiling. The house likes to test people. June had been gone 3 years. Cancer. Fast at the end. Too fast. And if you had known Arthur before and after, you would have noticed a difference in small things. He started talking less. Started standing in rooms a few seconds too long, like he'd forgotten why he walked in there. He boiled water and forgot he'd already boiled it. He kept her reading glasses in the kitchen drawer, even though nobody used them. And after she died, he became strangely careful with paper. Bills. Statements. Appointment cards. Warranty slips. He filed everything. Not in a fancy office. Just in old manila folders inside a dented metal cash box. June used to keep in the hall closet. On each folder, her handwriting. Mortgage. Insurance. Car. Medical. Taxes. Arthur never changed the labels. Couldn't bring himself to. At first, the lawsuit felt impossible. Then it felt embarrassing. Then it felt dangerous. Because once he called the number listed on the complaint, nobody at the bank spoke to him like a customer anymore. They spoke to him like a problem. A woman with a polished voice asked him to verify his last 4 digits. Then his date of birth. Then his address. Then she said, very casually, "You are currently in default, sir." Arthur gripped the phone tighter. In default on what? On your home equity loan ending in 4482. I've been paying that. There was a pause. Keyboard clicking. Then, our records show repeated underpayment over the last 11 months. Underpayment. Not non-payment. Underpayment. Arthur felt that word land a little differently. Like there was a trap hidden inside it. He walked to the kitchen table and sat down slowly. "No," he said. "I've been paying what they told me. Our records indicate a shortage." "How much of a shortage?" Another pause. Then the woman said it. $47.16 monthly. Arthur looked up. Actually looked up, like the answer might be written on the ceiling. $47? Yes, sir? He almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was so absurd his body didn't know what else to do. "You sued me for $50,000 over $47? No, sir. We sued after cumulative delinquency and acceleration of the balance. There are people who hear language like that and push back right away. Arthur wasn't one of them. He went quiet, because that was always his first reaction when someone with authority used too many polished words. He got quieter. He asked her to repeat it. She did. Slower this time. Like he was old. Like he was difficult. Like he was already guilty. When the call ended, Arthur sat there for nearly 10 minutes with the phone in his hand, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. Then he opened the hall closet, pulled down the metal box, and started digging. Now here's the part that matters. Arthur hadn't taken that loan to do something stupid. No speedboat. No gambling debt. No doomed business idea. 9 years earlier, after June's second surgery and the insurance gaps that nobody explains until you're already drowning in them, they'd opened a home equity line against the house. Not a huge one. Just enough to cover the medical balance they couldn't pay all at once, plus a failing furnace that chose the coldest January in Ohio to die. June hated the loan. She signed anyway. "Temporary," she'd said at the kitchen table. "Temporary has a way of moving in," Arthur told her. She looked at him over the rim of her tea mug. "Then we outlast it." That was June. Not dramatic. Just steady. They made every payment. Every single one. Even when she got sick again. Even when Arthur picked up weekend shifts replacing ceiling tiles at the school. Even when groceries got weirdly expensive and the electric bill started feeling personal. After June died, Arthur kept paying the exact same way they always had. He'd write the amount in a little spiral notebook. Date. Check number. Amount. Then he'd either mail it or later authorize the online draft when the bank pushed everyone toward convenient digital servicing. He didn't love online anything. But the payments went through month after month. So when the bank said repeated underpayment, Arthur did what a lot of quiet people do when they're cornered. He assumed maybe, somehow, he had made a mistake. That thought sat on him hard. Maybe June used to notice things he didn't. Maybe he'd overlooked a letter. Maybe grief had made him sloppy. That's how big institutions win sometimes. Not just with lawyers. With doubt. With enough paperwork to make an ordinary person question their own memory. By Thursday, a law firm representing the bank had already called. A younger man this time. Too cheerful. He said if Arthur wanted to avoid further exposure, they could discuss settlement. Arthur stared at the wall while the man explained his options. A payment plan. A lump sum discount. Voluntary sale of the property. He said it like he was offering menu items. Arthur asked, "So what exactly are you saying?" The man lowered his voice a notch. "I'm saying if you can come up with $12,000 in the next 10 days, my client may consider dismissing the action." Arthur closed his eyes. 12,000. He had just under 4 in savings. Most of that was supposed to be for the transmission in his truck, which had started making a grinding sound in reverse. He said, "I don't have 12,000. The man didn't sound surprised. "Then you may want to consider listing the property before judgment." Listing the property. Arthur looked around his kitchen. The clock June picked at a yard sale. The little chipped ceramic lemon on the windowsill. Her apron still hanging from the pantry knob because one day he decided moving it would feel too final. This wasn't property. It was the place his life still sounded like her. And now some voice in a pressed shirt was telling him to list it. That night, his daughter Emily drove up from Columbus. She found him at the table with statements spread out in rows. Not neat rows anymore. Panic rows. He looked smaller than usual. Not physically. Just folded inward. Emily set down her purse, leaned over, and kissed the top of his head. "Okay," she said quietly. "Show me." Arthur wasn't a man who cried in front of people. But when he slid the lawsuit across the table, his hand shook just enough for her to notice. She read the amount, then looked at him. "What happened?" "I don't know." That answer scared her more than anything. Because if Arthur had crashed a car, gotten scammed, forgotten payments for 6 months, at least that would be a story. This wasn't a story yet. It was fog. They stayed up past midnight, going through letters. Annual statements. Payment confirmations. Rate notices. Tax forms. Most of it was boring, repetitive, almost numbingly normal. Then Emily noticed something. In the older statements, Arthur's monthly payment was one amount. Then, about 11 months before the lawsuit, it jumped. Not by hundreds. Not by anything obvious. Just $47.16. Arthur frowned. "I never saw that." "You sure?" He thought for a second, then got up and went to the closet again. Deeper this time. He pulled out a thinner folder labeled Mortgage, Servicing Transfer. The bank had changed names 2 years earlier after a merger. New logo. New website. New return address. Same loan, they said. Same terms. Just enhanced customer service. Arthur handed Emily a stack of notices from that period. Most were the kind people barely read. Updated privacy policy. Digital access instructions. Important changes to your online account. She flipped through them one by one, then stopped. "Dad?" He looked over. "What?" She held up a folded letter with a pale blue heading. "Did you ever see this one?" Arthur took it. Read the first paragraph. Then the second. It was an escrow adjustment notice. The kind of letter designed to look so ordinary you almost ignore it. According to the notice, his monthly payment had increased because of an insurance advance and projected shortage. Effective immediately. Arthur looked blankly at the page. "I never got this." Emily pointed to the top right corner. Their house number was correct. The street was correct. But the zip code was wrong. 1 digit off. Just one. Arthur stared at it. Can they do that? Emily didn't answer right away, because now the room had changed. Before, this was a debt problem. Now it smelled like something else. The next morning, Arthur called the bank again. This time, he was ready. He had the notice in front of him. He had a pen. He had Emily listening on speaker. The representative, a different one now, confirmed the payment increase had been sent by mail. Arthur read the address back slowly. Then the zip code. Silence. More keyboard clicking. Sir, that is the address on file at the time. It's wrong. I understand. No, Arthur said, and for the first time there was steel in his voice. I don't think you do. You changed the amount. You mailed it to the wrong zip code. Then you said I underpaid. The woman shifted into script language. I'm sorry for your frustration. That phrase. Arthur would later repeat it to Emily, like it was poison. Not sorry for the error. Sorry for your frustration. She transferred him twice. Then to loan resolution. Then to escalated servicing. Each person sounded polished. Each person had only part of the story. Each person said some version of, the account reflects delinquency due to insufficient monthly remittance. Finally, one man told Arthur, almost impatiently, that the missing amount each month had caused the account to roll into a suspense status. Arthur asked what that meant. It means payments were held until sufficient funds accumulated. So you had my money? Yes, sir. And instead of telling me clearly, you held it? Sir, notices were issued. To the wrong zip code. Long pause. Then, I'm not authorized to comment on pending litigation. That was the moment something changed in Arthur. Not all at once. He didn't become a movie character. Didn't slam the phone. Didn't start delivering speeches. He just got still. Very still. And when quiet people get that still, it usually means they've stopped trying to be liked. He went to legal aid. Tiny office. Scuffed floor. Coffee that tasted like burnt pennies. A woman named Denise met with him on a Wednesday afternoon. Mid-50s. No-nonsense haircut. Reading glasses hanging on a chain. She asked him 3 questions before she touched the file. Did you stop paying? No. Did they send notice? Maybe. But wrong address. Do you have records? Arthur pushed the spiral notebook toward her. Then the statements. Then the blue letter. Denise read for 10 straight minutes without saying anything. Just turned pages. Circled dates. Licked her finger once to separate 2 sheets and muttered, "Come on." Arthur waited. Finally, Denise leaned back. "Well," she said, "they may have a problem." Arthur blinked. "A real one?" "A real enough one." She explained it slowly. If the bank changed his required payment, they had to prove proper notice. If they mailed the adjustment wrong, that mattered. If they kept accepting payments while internally coding them into suspense instead of applying them normally, that mattered too. And if the shortage came from a servicing error rather than a legitimate charge. She tapped the blue letter. That matters a lot. Arthur let out a breath he'd been holding for days. But Denise wasn't smiling yet. "Don't get too comfortable," she said. Banks bury bad facts under clean paperwork. We need more. And that's where the story gets sharper. Because the wrong zip code was enough to ask questions. It wasn't enough to win. The bank's attorneys responded quickly. Very quickly. They sent a packet thick enough to look intimidating on purpose. Payment history. Default ledger. Escrow analysis. Copies of notices. An affidavit from a servicing officer who had probably never seen Arthur's face in his life. On paper, it looked airtight. Monthly amount due. Increased. Monthly amount received. Short. Delinquency accrued. Default declared. Balance accelerated. Case closed. Arthur stared at the stack on his kitchen table and felt that doubt creep back in. What if the judge only cared about their records? What if he lost the house? Because he didn't understand a system built by people who did this every day. That weekend, Emily came back again. So did Denise. The three of them sat at the table with highlighters, sticky notes, and takeout containers going cold between piles of paper. Hours passed. Nothing. Then more nothing. Then at 9:40 p.m., Arthur found it. Actually, that's not true. He almost threw it away first. It was a single-page annual insurance summary buried between two duplicate tax statements. Boring layout. Tiny print. Most people wouldn't read past the first paragraph. Arthur only noticed because one number looked familiar. $47.16. He frowned. Denise. She took the page. Read the line. Then read it again. Her expression changed. Not huge. Just enough. What is it? Emily asked. Denise pointed to a section labeled Temporary Insurance Advance Reversal. Months before the lawsuit, the bank had internally reversed the exact insurance shortage amount that triggered the payment increase. Reversed it. Meaning the shortage shouldn't have kept carrying forward. Meaning the higher payment may never have been valid after all. Meaning Arthur had been marked short over an amount the bank itself had already corrected. Same number. Same $47.16. Just buried where nobody would notice. Arthur looked from Denise to Emily. I don't understand. Denise put the paper down carefully. You don't need to understand every line, she said. You just need to understand this. They may have sued you on numbers they already knew were wrong. And there it was. The first real crack. Tiny, but clean. From there, the bank changed tone. Not immediately, but noticeably. Their lawyer requested a continuance. Then another call. This time, less cheerful. More careful. He said his client was open to reviewing account treatment. Arthur almost laughed when Denise translated it. They're nervous. A week later, settlement offer number 2 arrived. Dismissed the lawsuit if Arthur resumed payments under a modified amount. No apology. No admission. No explanation for the error. Just a quiet attempt to make the problem disappear. Denise told him he didn't have to accept. Arthur asked, should I? She took a second. That depends. Do you want peace? Or do you want them to say it out loud? Arthur looked at June's empty chair. He thought about the calls. The scripted voices. The way they'd said property. The way they'd made him feel stupid in his own kitchen. And something in him hardened. Out loud, he said. So they went to court. It wasn't dramatic at first. No gasps. No surprise witness. Just fluorescent lighting, uncomfortable benches, and a room full of people pretending not to watch each other lose things. Arthur wore his only blazer. Brown, slightly too big in the shoulders. He kept smoothing the front of it with both hands. The bank sent a firm associate, barely older than Emily, plus a remote servicing witness on video. Denise had 3 folders, a legal pad, and the kind of calm that makes other people nervous. When Arthur's case was called, he stood too fast. Almost stumbled. Caught himself. The judge was a woman with tired eyes and zero patience for performance. Good. That helped. The bank's attorney went first. He was smooth, respectful, confident in that trained way. He said the borrower had repeatedly failed to remit the full contractual amount. He said notices had been mailed. He said the plaintiff's records were clear and business record reliable. Arthur sat there listening to his own life get compressed into sterile phrases. Borrower. Delinquency. Remit. Exposure. As if he were an entry on a spreadsheet and not a man who still slept on one side of the bed. Then Denise stood. She didn't raise her voice. Didn't grandstand. She just began asking very simple questions. First, about the address on the notice. The servicing witness admitted the zip code on file didn't match Arthur's actual mailing address. Then about the suspense account. The witness admitted payments were received, held, not returned, not clearly explained beyond automated notices. Then Denise moved to the annual insurance summary. The room got quieter. She asked the witness to identify the document. He did. She asked whether the listed insurance advance had been reversed internally. He hesitated, then said yes. She asked for the amount. He looked at the screen. Swallowed. $47.16. Denise let the silence sit there for a second. That second mattered. Then she asked a question that changed everything. If the exact shortage amount driving the alleged default had been reversed on the account, can you explain why the plaintiff continued treating Mr. Nolan's monthly payments as insufficient? The witness blinked, looked down, looked off screen, probably at someone feeding him notes. Then said the sentence, "No bank wants," said in front of a judge. I cannot explain that from the record before me. That was it. Not a shout. Not fireworks. Just a sentence. A small one. But you could feel the power move across the room. The judge leaned forward. The bank's lawyer stopped writing. Arthur didn't fully understand the legal significance in that instant. But he understood tone. And for the first time since this started, the bank sounded uncertain. Denise kept going. Careful. Precise. No wasted words. She showed that Arthur had continued making payments, that the bank had accepted them, that notices went to the wrong zip code, that the shortage amount was tied to an insurance advance later reversed, and that, despite all of that, the bank still accelerated a debt and sued for the full balance. When the judge asked the bank's attorney whether his client could reconcile the ledger discrepancy, he requested time to review. The judge's expression didn't change. You filed the lawsuit, she said. You should have reviewed it before today. Arthur looked down at his hands under the table, because he was suddenly afraid if he looked up, he might smile. After a short recess, the bank requested a private conference. Denise listened. Then came back to Arthur in the hallway. They want to dismiss the case, she said. He stared at her. Just like that? Not just like that. They want it dismissed without prejudice and the account reevaluated. Arthur frowned. What does that mean? It means they want to back out quietly. He looked through the courtroom window at the young attorney shuffling papers. So they can do this to someone else? Denise didn't answer immediately. Because there it was, the ugly part underneath the paperwork. Maybe not malice. Maybe not conspiracy. Sometimes it's worse than that. Indifference. Systems so large, nobody feels the bruise they leave on ordinary people. Arthur asked, what happens if I say no? We push, Denise said. But pushing takes time, and there's risk. He looked at the floor tiles, then at the vending machine at the end of the hallway, then at his own reflection in the glass. Tired face, gray at the temples. A man who had spent weeks feeling smaller than a number. And yet, he said quietly, I want the record clear. So they went back in. The final order, after more arguing than Arthur expected, did three things. The lawsuit was dismissed. The bank was instructed to correct the loan accounting. And the judge made a pointed note on the record regarding defective notice and unexplained servicing discrepancies. Not a movie ending. No $1 million verdict. No dramatic apology from the bank. Just something rarer in real life. A powerful institution forced, even briefly, to stop pretending its paperwork was the same thing as truth. A month later, Arthur received a corrected statement. The default was gone. The late fees were gone. The payment amount dropped back down. There was even a small credit on the account. Not much, but enough to make him stare at the page for a long time. At the bottom was a bland sentence thanking him for his patience. That part almost made him laugh. His patience. As if patience was what they had taken. Emily wanted him to celebrate. Denise told him to keep every document forever. Arthur said he planned to. Then on a cool Sunday afternoon, he did something simple. He took the metal cash box from the closet, set it on the kitchen table, opened it, and added one more folder. He wrote the label slowly in block letters. Bank lawsuit. Then he sat back, looked at it, and for the first time in weeks, the house felt like his again. Not because the fear had vanished completely. It doesn't work like that. When something tries to take your home, even on paper, it leaves a mark. You double-check mail more often. Unknown numbers make your chest tighten. Official envelopes don't look ordinary anymore. But something else had changed too. Arthur wasn't doubting himself now. That was gone. A month after the case ended, he was at the school fixing a jammed gym door when one of the secretaries asked how things were going. Arthur wiped grease from his hand with a rag and said, "Better." She smiled. "Good." Then he added, almost to himself, "Turns out it helps to keep your receipts." She laughed like it was a joke. Arthur smiled politely. But he wasn't joking. Because sometimes survival doesn't look heroic. Sometimes it looks like a spiral notebook. A mislabeled envelope. A widower who can't throw away old statements because his wife taught him better. Sometimes the only reason a person beats a machine is because they notice one number repeating when nobody else cared to look. $47.16. That was the amount the bank treated like nothing. Too small to explain properly. Too small to call about. Too small, maybe, to think a man would fight over. But that tiny number turned out to be the thread. And once Arthur pulled it, the whole story started to come apart. That's what makes stories like this stick. Not because a regular man beat a bank. Although, in a way, he did. It sticks because of what almost happened. How close he came to believing them. How close he came to paying money he didn't owe. How close he came to selling a house full of memories because a system had decided a small error was easier to bury than to fix. And honestly, that's the part people should sit with. The bank didn't come in like a villain. It came in dressed as procedure, as notices, as automated language, as confidence. That's how a lot of damage enters a person's life. Not loudly. Professionally. Arthur still lives in the same house. The left front step still dips. June's apron still hangs near the pantry. He finally got the truck repaired. And every month, when the statement arrives, he opens it at the same kitchen table and reads every line before he takes a sip of coffee. Not because he's paranoid, because now he knows better. Because numbers don't always tell the truth on their own. People decide what they mean. And sometimes the difference between losing everything and keeping your home is one quiet person refusing to be rushed past the fine print. So if you ever feel small standing in front of a giant system, remember Arthur. Remember that calm voice on the phone telling him he was in default. Remember the wrong zip code. Remember the suspense account. Remember the line item nobody thought mattered. And remember this. Power makes mistakes too. It just counts on you not finding them. If this had been you, would you have taken the bank settlement and moved on? Or pushed until they had to say it out loud? Let me know in the comments.